Mr. Longfingers. I still remember the smell of her. It was a mixture of lavender soap, old paper, and the sickly sweet scent of boiled sugar candies. That was Grandma. To everyone else, she was just a grieving widow, a harmless old woman shuffling through the final chapters of her life. But to me, a 10-year-old boy with an overactive imagination, she was the gatekeeper to a world of shadows and whispers. It started 6 months after Granddad passed. The silence in their massive Victorian house became too loud for her, I suppose. My mother protested at first, worried about the disruption, worried about the moods Grandma was known for, but eventually, guilt won over. Grandma moved into the guest room down the hall from mine. I didn't mind. In fact, I was thrilled. Grandma was eccentric. She didn't treat me like a child, she treated me like a co-conspirator. She was the one who slipped me sweets before dinner, the one who defended me when I broke a face. But mostly, I loved her for the stories. She didn't tell the sanitized, fluffy bedtime stories my parents read to me. Her stories had teeth. She would tell me about growing up during the Blitz in World War II, about the bombs whistling like banshees. She told me about her teenage years in the 1950s, dabbling in the occult with her friends, using Ouija boards in abandoned cellars, reading tarot cards by candlelight, trying to speak to things that should have remained silent. "We opened doors, darling," she told me once, her voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. And sometimes, we forgot to close them. But of all her tales, there was only one that burrowed into my psyche and refused to leave. The story of Mr. Longfingers. It happened on a rainy Tuesday in November. The wind was howling against the eaves of our house, rattling the window panes. I had asked her why she took such long baths. It was a point of contention in the house. Mom hated that Grandma would lock herself in the bathroom for hours, lighting incense and humming strange, discordant tunes until the water turned ice cold. "Why don't you just take a shower, Grandma?" I asked, sitting cross-legged on my bed. "It's faster." Grandma was sitting in the rocking chair in the corner of my room. She stopped rocking. The room went dead silent, save for the rain lashing against the glass. She leaned forward, and the shadows stretched across her wrinkled face, making her eyes look like two deep, dark pools. "I can't take showers, boy," she said, her voice devoid of its usual warmth. "It's too dangerous. For people like me, people who are sensitive, a shower is a trap." I pulled my duvet up to my chin. "Why?" She stood up and walked over to my window, peering out into the darkness. "Because of the sensory deprivation. Think about it. When you are in the bath, you can see the whole room. You are aware. But in a shower?" She turned to face me. "The water deafens you. The steam blinds you. And if you close your eyes, well, that's when the rules apply." "Rules?" My heart began to hammer against my ribs. "It's a game of seconds," she whispered, shuffling closer to my bed. She smelled strongly of peppermint and fear. "Mr. Longfingers, he's a shy one. Or maybe he's just polite. He waits until you can't see him. Some say he is a demon attracted to the heat and the human scent. Others say he lives in the pipes, a fluid thing made of mold and misery. But he follows the rules." She sat on the edge of my bed. I stopped breathing. "If you are in the shower, and you close your eyes to wash your hair, you have 5 seconds. 5 seconds is safe. You are alone." She held up 5 trembling fingers. 10 seconds, 10 seconds is pushing your luck. The air will get heavy. The temperature might drop, just a fraction. She lowered her hand, leaning in until her nose was almost touching mine. "But if you keep your eyes closed for 15 seconds, that is when the invitation is accepted. You won't feel him at first. You will just feel a pressure. A feeling of being observed. And then, if you listen past the roar of the water, you will hear it." "Hear what?" I squeaked. She tapped her long, bony fingernail against the wooden bedpost. "Tap. Tap. Tap. Fingers, she hissed. Long, pale fingers drumming against the glass door of the shower cubicle. Testing the glass. Waiting for you to open your eyes. She grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. Promise me something. If you ever hear that tapping, if you ever feel that cold presence, for the love of God, do not open your eyes. Finish washing, turn off the water, and step out. But do not look at him. He doesn't like to be seen. That night, the darkness of my room felt heavy, like a physical weight. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw a pale, elongated face pressed against glass, smiling with too many teeth. The psychological damage was immediate. For the next week, the bathroom became a torture chamber. I tried to be brave. I was 10, getting too old for irrational fears. But the shower is a vulnerable place. You are naked, wet, and defenseless. I developed a routine. I would get in, heart pounding, and wash my body with my eyes wide open, stinging from the steam. But washing hair was the problem. I had to close my eyes to keep the shampoo out. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. 3 Mississippi. I would scrub frantically, my fingers tearing through my scalp. 4 Mississippi. 5 Mississippi. Panic would rise in my throat like bile. I'd imagine the steam thickening, coalescing into a shape in the corner of the cubicle. 6 Mississippi. Was that a noise? Was that a tap? I would rip my eyes open, gasping for air, soap running down my face and burning my retinas. I'd spin around, checking the glass door. Nothing. Just steam and condensation. But the feeling of being watched was palpable. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room, replaced by a cold, static charge. It all came to a head on a Sunday night. I was exhausted, sleep-deprived from nightmares where hands reached out of the drain to grab my ankles. I was in the shower, and I lost count. I had closed my eyes to rinse the conditioner. I was tired. My mind drifted. 7 seconds, 10 seconds, 12. Suddenly, the roar of the water seemed to dampen, as if someone had placed a hand over my ears. The air in the cubicle grew freezing cold. The steam, usually swirling chaotically, seemed to freeze in place, and then, I heard it, tap. Tap. Tap, clear as day. A rhythmic, deliberate drumming on the glass door, right at eye level. I screamed. I didn't rinse. I didn't turn off the water. I threw the door open, slipped on the wet tiles, and crashed onto the bath mat, scrambling backward like a crab until my back hit the locked door. I sat there, naked and shivering, staring at the empty shower, waiting for a monster that wasn't there. My mother found me like that. That was the night the war began. I told her everything. I sobbed into her chest, telling her about the rules, the counting, the tapping, and Mr. Longfingers. My mother's face went through a transformation. Concern turned to confusion, and then to a cold, hard fury. My parents' bedroom shared a wall with mine. That night, I pressed an empty glass against the plaster, listening. She's sick, Simon. Mom's voice was a sharp hiss. She's traumatizing him. He's 10 years old and he's afraid to wash himself because of her sick little stories. A monster in the shower? Mr. Longfingers? It's demented. She's old, love. She doesn't mean it, Dad mumbled, his voice tired. I don't care. You speak to her tomorrow, or I'm putting her in a home. I mean it, Simon. This ends now. The next evening, Grandma came to my room. The atmosphere was different. There were no boiled sweets. No smell of lavender. She smelled like old dust and sadness. She sat on the edge of my bed, but she didn't look at me. She stared out the window at the moon hanging low and heavy in the sky. I hear I've upset you, she said softly. I didn't answer. I felt guilty, like I had betrayed her by telling Mum. She turned to me, and her blue eyes were watery. I only wanted to protect you, little one. The world is full of dark things. I wanted you to be prepared. To know the rules. Mom says there are no rules, I whispered. She says monsters aren't real. Grandma smiled, but it was a broken, fragile thing. Your mother is a practical woman. She sees what she wants to see. But maybe she is right. Maybe I brought too much darkness into this house. She stood up, her joints cracking in the silence. She looked frail. Older than she had the day before. Don't you worry about Mr. Longfingers anymore, she said, her voice firming up. A strange resolve settled over her features. I'm going to have a word with him. I'll make sure he never bothers you again. I'll scare the bastard off myself. It won't come back if it has to face me. She leaned down and kissed my forehead. Her lips were ice cold. Good night, my brave boy. That was the last time I saw her alive. It happened a week later. I woke up at 6 a.m. The house was silent, wrapped in the gray, pre-dawn gloom. But something had woken me. A sound thumped out, a heavy, dull sound. Like a sack of wet sand hitting the floor. I sat up, heart racing. Then I heard it. The hiss. The relentless, aggressive hiss of the shower running at full blast down the hall. Grandma never took showers. I got out of bed, my bare feet patting silently on the carpet. The hallway was freezing, but as I approached the bathroom door, the temperature spiked. It was hot. Oppressively hot. I stood outside the door. Grandma? No answer. Just the water. Hiss. Splash. Hiss. Grandma? I knocked. Nothing. I tried the handle. It turned. I pushed the door open, and a wall of steam hit me like a physical blow. It was thick, white, and suffocating. It smelled of sulfur and lavender soap. I squinted, trying to see through the fog. Grandma, are you? Oh, the words died in my throat. Through the glass door of the shower cubicle, I could see a shape. A heap of pale flesh on the tiled floor. The water was beating down on her, masking the sound of my own breathing. I stepped closer, the steam condensing on my face like tears. She was curled up in the fetal position. Her eyes were wide open, bulging, staring at something only she could see. Her mouth was twisted in a rictus of pure, unadulterated terror. My dad pushed past me a second later, shouting, waking the house, pulling me away from the door. There was chaos. Mom screaming. The phone ringing. The sirens wailing in the distance. They said it was a heart attack. Massive cardiac arrest, the paramedic told my dad in the kitchen later, thinking I couldn't hear. It was quick. She probably didn't feel a thing. Just the shock of the cold water, maybe. But the water hadn't been cold. The room had been stiflingly hot, and they were wrong about the pain. I saw her face. She had felt everything. Years have passed since then. I'm a grown man now. I have a wife, 2 beautiful daughters, and a mortgage. But to this day, there is no shower in my house. We have a bathtub. My wife thinks I'm eccentric, or that I'm holding onto the trauma of seeing my grandmother's dead body. She thinks I associate showers with death. She's right, but not for the reason she thinks, because I saw something else that morning. Something I never told the police, or my parents, or my wife, when the paramedics were carrying Grandma's body down the stairs, and my parents were sobbing in the kitchen. I went back into the bathroom. The air was still humid. The shower glass was still covered in condensation. I looked at the glass door of the cubicle. Grandma had been lying on the floor, curled up tight. Her hands were clutched to her chest, but high up on the glass, about 6 feet off the ground, far higher than my grandmother could reach even if she were standing. There were marks in the steam. There were 3 distinct streaks. Long, dragging lines where the condensation had been wiped away. They weren't scratches from the inside, from someone trying to get out. They were clear, perfectly formed fingerprints. But they were wrong. They were too long. Too thin. And based on the way the steam had been disturbed, they had been pressed against the glass from the outside. Someone or something had been standing in the bathroom with her. It had been standing there, watching her die, tapping its long fingers against the glass, counting down the seconds until she opened her eyes. I don't take showers. I never will. Because sometimes, while I'm in the bath and the house is quiet, I look at the condensation on the mirror, and I wonder, how long can I keep my eyes closed before the counting starts?